In this video, I'm going to show you the top 5 most common questions that Nordstrom ask in their interviews, and I'm going to help you plan good answers to these to help you get a job at Nordstrom. So let's start with a question that is super important, which is what times can you work at Nordstrom? And if you don't answer this well, it really hurts your chance of getting the job. You want to have a strong answer to this and show what they want. So let's look at what a good answer looks like and the things that you don't want to say that are the elements of a bad answer. So a good answer shows flexibility. It shows that you're helpful and you're going to be useful to the company, that you're open-minded and that you're not closed to various times, and that you are a person that is easy to work with, someone that's flexible and is going to be helpful to the business. Some things to avoid is people who are kind of no compromise, that draw the line and say, I won't work these times or I can't do this, that you're stubborn, that you're unable to move and show a lot of inflexibility. And fundamentally, they are looking to hire people to staff specific times. They have times in mind when they're interviewing someone. And if you are saying you can't work the times that they need, then they're just not going to hire you. You are not meeting the business's needs. Let's sort of plan a good answer by looking at what sort of things Nordstrom want and what sort of things you can say in your answer that will help you get the job. So ideally, you ought to say things like you're happy to work at peak trading hours, that you're available to work at short notice when needed, that you're open to overtime. These are all positive things that you can say. You can also say, if you've got very, very good flexibility, that you can work the full range of opening hours. That really is the perfect answer. So whenever the store is open, you could potentially schedule yourself to be available for those times when you're put on shift. Then you could say that you're happy to work to meet Nordstrom's needs. So fundamentally, you can do your hours across the full range of opening hours would be the perfect answer. The more flexibility you can show, the better. The worst way to answer this is to list a range of times that you can't work and say, I can work all the other times. That's a very negative way to answer it. You want to be focusing on what you can do and not spending a lot of time talking about what you can't do. Keep it positive. So let's move on to another super important question, which is, what do you know about Nordstrom? Obviously, if you go to your interview and only know the very basics about the company, that is not going to impress them. So let's look at how you can actually answer this question well. So the procedure that I recommend people follow is starting in the middle of that diagram and then working out to build a better and better answer as you go. So you start by saying the things everybody knows, the really obvious things. Then drop in some things that show that you've actually done some research. And then you want to dig deep, get 1 or 2 facts ready that only people that have really done lots of research and lots of preparation would actually know. So let's run through the key facts that you need to know, and I've prepared them all for you ready. So the first thing you say is that Nordstrom is a department store. It's led by its department store business. It has other brands, but primarily it is a department store chain. It's focused on being a fashion retailer. It does sell a wider range, but the majority of their money comes through fashion. They are what we call multi-channel. So it's not just stores. It's not just an online business. They have 2 businesses, the online and the stores, and those work together. So in the stores, you can process returns from online, or you can buy online and collect in store. So those 2 things work together. You could also talk about the fact that the majority of Nordstrom's business is catering towards the higher end of the market, particularly if you're applying to one of their main department stores. They are focused on luxury goods, and that is the key part of their business. They are higher than some other chains like Kohl's or JCPenney. They're targeting the higher price point and the higher quality. They are focused on A-rated malls. These are the best malls in the country with high footfall and in really great locations. They have the Nordstrom Rack business. That's their off-price business where they will sell discounted Nordstrom products. They've got the Hot Look business, which is their flash sales business. You can also talk about that. They've got Trunk Club, which is a brand that they've launched, which is where a customer works with a stylist to curate a kind of box, or a trunk as they call it, of clothing, and that's shipped to them, and they only pay for what they keep, and they're charged after they have returned what they don't want. And that's another part of their business. They were originally founded as Wallen and Nordstrom, and then you've only got the Nordstrom part surviving. They were founded all the way back in 1901. That's a good number to remember. You can say the company traces itself back to 1901, and it was originally a shoe store. So it wasn't always a department store, and it basically comes from the gold rush. So you had big gold rushes where people were rushing to various parts of the country where people had discovered gold, and there was lots of business people like the Nordstroms that came there to service all those people rushing to find gold and sell it and make their fortune. The company is still family controlled. The Nordstrom family have a huge influence, and I mean, currently the chief executive and chair of the company are from the Nordstrom family. It was listed by Fortune magazine as one of the best companies to work for. That's one thing you could definitely mention in your interview, and you can share that as a reason why you are more interested in this company. They also have restaurants in some of their locations, and one of my top tips to make sure you're super well prepared is to read Nordstrom's Investor Day presentations, which you can find very easily from Googling. They're just nice little PowerPoints, and they show you the current strategy. It's pitched to investors, but it's really useful to read if you're applying there because it shows exactly what the company is trying to do, their aims, their strategy, and you can bring that to your interview and say that you've read that, and that's really impressive. And then if you want to have extremely detailed, more information that you could ever imagine about the company, if you look up their Form 10K, you actually get their annual report and you can learn everything there is to know about the company from reading those. So that's how you absolutely ace the what do you know about Nordstrom question. Feel free to screenshot this or take any notes you need from this and prepare a brilliant answer. And if you were able to talk about all of this in your interview, that's going to be really impressive and will help you get the job. So let's move on to the next question. Why do you want to work at Nordstrom? And of all the questions you could be asked in the interview, this is one of the worst to try and make up on the spot. You might only get 10 seconds of thinking time in an interview, and it's going to be hard to think up a brilliant answer very quickly on the spot. So this is one that you need to prepare and be ready to go with a strong, confident answer. And so I'm going to help you plan that strong, confident answer. I recommend you take some notes or bullet point or have a think and plan out a good answer and the things that you want to talk about. So let's look at some inspiration of what you can say. The first thing you should always think about is what would you enjoy about working at Nordstrom? Are you someone that is super interested in fashion and that this is the perfect match for you? Have you got experience working in customer service or experience working in retail and you really liked that and you enjoyed that? You could talk about that. Are you someone that really likes meeting new people and you see this as something that you'll do all the time at Nordstrom? Then you can think about how does it match your skills, particularly if you're super interested in fashion, that is a good match for your skills and interests. If you're someone that's really great at working with customers and really enjoys and is skilled at dealing with customers and providing great customer service, then this job could be a very good match for your skills. And say in the interview that you think that Nordstrom is a great match for your skills. You could think about progression interests. So Nordstrom is an enormous company, and if you look at the department store, it's very big. There's lots and lots of different jobs there, and you believe that once you've proved yourself and you've worked there for a while, that you believe that there is chances for advancement and that you could build a career here. And whatever you do, when you're giving your answer, be really enthusiastic, because you would rather take someone that's enthusiastic about working for the company than someone who's not really all that bothered and just wants it to get any job. Let's look at some other ideas of specific things that you could take, and feel free to write down 3 or 4 as things that you might want to talk about. So if you see this as a long-term career, definitely say so at your interview. If you know someone who works at Nordstrom, don't name them, but you can say that you've spoken to people who work at Nordstrom and they were really positive and they said all these positive things about the company, and you can share in their positivity. You could mention that it's a Fortune 500 company and you want to work for a very large and very influential business that you feel there's lots of opportunities to grow with. You could say that you believe that you will excel at the job, meaning that you'll be very good at it, and that's a perfectly good reason for applying there. You could talk about brand affinity. Have you shopped at Nordstrom for a long time and really like their products and are enthusiastic about what they offer? Link to your previous experience. If you've got work experience in somewhere similar, you can talk about that work experience really positively, and link to your experiences as a customer as well, and link that to why you're interested in working at Nordstrom. So pick as many of these as you can, and that will give you quite a good answer to go in and really impress them with. And the last thing that you might want to talk about, which really does set Nordstrom apart from the competition is the personal service that they offer. So you don't get a personalized service when you go online to Amazon, but Nordstrom still maintains that personal touch, and you think that's important. You could also mention that. So this is how you plan a really great answer to the why do you want to work at Nordstrom. So take some of this and plan your great answer. Let's move on and look at the next question, which is tell me about your previous experience. Now, this may seem like a very easy question to answer, but quite often it's a wasted opportunity when answered badly. So this is one that you want to think about carefully how you answer to make sure that you get the most benefit. This is an opportunity to show them that you're a perfect hire. And if you just say, I did this job and I did this job and I did this job, and then try and move on, it's a rubbish answer. It doesn't show off the skills that you have and what you've gained from it. So basically what they're looking for is relevant experience. They would rather hire someone with relevant experience, though of course if you're at the very start of your career and don't have that experience, then they've agreed to interview you knowing that. If you're 17 or 18, that's expected. They want someone with a good track record. They don't want people that have blown up in other jobs and been fired constantly. And they're trying to basically sort out people that could be trouble from people that are not going to be trouble. And then you want to focus on customer service experience because they want people with experience working with customers. And if you check all of those, then you're looking like a good hire. So let's look at how you actually answer this. So start by giving your job titles and give your full job title. Don't say things like, I worked at a restaurant. Say what the restaurant was and what your official title there was, because that's a much better answer. Then you say what your responsibilities are. So don't just say, this was your job. Explain exactly the things that you were responsible for, because basically they are listening to your answer, thinking about what you need to know and be experienced at to be good at Nordstrom and what you did in your previous jobs. And you are showing how those match up by listing all of the various responsibilities and things that you did in your previous job. For example, if you worked at a call center and you took complaints from customers, that's going to be something that you might have to deal with at Nordstrom. So it's something you could talk about. Give some good reasons why you left. If you're asked, just have those prepared. They may ask, why did you leave this job? Why did you leave this job? And just be ready for those questions just in case and have an answer ready to go. Don't ever say anything negative about previous employers. Always focus on positives and good reasons for moving from jobs. And then the other important thing that you should always do is link back to Nordstrom. So once you've given your previous job, say why this job is going to make you better at working at Nordstrom. So link for them your experience in your previous jobs to being good at your new job. And that will get the most benefit. So that's the structure that you follow and how you have a great answer to this. So tips for success. Emphasize that you left on good terms if you're asked, and you could return to your previous jobs and they will have you back because you did such a good job. Always link back to Nordstrom and emphasize clearly customer service experience. So you may have certain jobs that are not very relevant and you may run through those quickly so you can spend more time talking about the customer service roles. And that's how you answer this question. Let's move on to another question, and I'll give you some ideas of how to answer this question and some ideas about some other ones like it that you may be asked. So we've got this one, tell me about a time when you provided great customer service. And there's lots of questions like, tell me about a time. And the way that you answer any tell me about a time or give me an example of a time you did this is with the STAR technique. You start with the situation, then the task, then what actions you took, and then what result you actually got at the end. So I've made up an example of a customer service interaction where someone went above and beyond to show you how you answer this. And I would be ready with an example of when you gave great customer service, or if you're at the very, very early stage of your career and have never had a job before, you may want to think about a time where you or someone you know has received great customer service. So let's look at my made up example to show you how it works. So situation is you say, what was the situation? What was happening? So while working at another store, a customer's online order of a suit jacket was incorrectly picked as a cocktail dress. Well, that's not very good. Then you say the task. What did you need to do? The customer was naturally annoyed by the error as they had an interview soon. My task was to solve the problem and restore customer service standards. Very clear explanation of what you had to do. Then action. Say what you are actually going to do. So I immediately offered a sincere apology and refunded the customer if that was the store's policy. Be clear that that was the right policy to follow. I then set about reuniting the customer with the correct item by sourcing it from another location and arranging free 24-hour delivery. And you want to be clear that this is the right thing to do and this is within the company's policies. Then the result, the customer was delighted with the solution and posted a positive review of his experience online. So whenever you're thinking about an example, start at the end, think about the result, the good thing that happened, and then follow through and talk about the stages that came before, and always use the STAR technique: situation, task, action, result, and that will ace the tell me about a time questions. I'd recommend that you prepare examples of good customer service, professionalism, teamwork, and times where you've had to deal with difficult or angry customers. These are the ones that I've seen them ask in the past. And if you have an example ready, it makes the interview so much easier. It's really, really hard to think up an example on the spot in an interview. So having some ready will make you so much more confident and give you a much better answer. So let's move on to some questions that you could ask at the end of the interview. It's terrible to get to the end, and if they say, have you got any questions, and you say no, that's very bad. Here are some ideas of questions that you might want to ask them. So you could say, can you please explain what happens next in the Nordstrom hiring process? Show that you're really interested in getting the job and you care about what happens next. You could ask, what would you say is the best part of working at Nordstrom? And then when they say what they love about the company, talk about how you would be really interested in that and basically agree with them. You could ask, what would you suggest that a new hire should do now to be exceptionally well prepared for day one at Nordstrom if you're successful at interview? And if they suggest you should do this or read this or learn about this, you can make a commitment there and then to do what they suggest you do. Then you could ask, how would you characterize the perfect Nordstrom employee? And they can give you some insight into what they're looking for in a good hire. And you can explain how you match exactly what they're looking for. And lastly, I would try and make up one question on the day. So try and be a bit more spontaneous. And they may say things in the interview that you wonder about. Just think for a second, is this an appropriate question? If it is, you could ask that question. Though never ask about pay or holidays or delaying your start date at interview, because that could cost you the job. So I hope this video was helpful to you. If it was, please post in the comments below what questions Nordstrom asked at your interview. That'd be really helpful to everyone else so we can see what questions come up. And I'd appreciate if you would like and subscribe. And finally, thank you very much for watching.